This is a film by Talking Head TV. This is a film by Talking Head TV. TV.
Up to mighty London came an Irishman one day. As the streets are paved with gold, so everyone was gay, singing songs of Piccadilly, Strand and Leicester Square, till Paddy got excited, then he shouted to them there. It's a long way to Tipperary, it's a long way to go. It's a long way to Tipperary, to the sweetest girl I know. Goodbye, Piccadilly, farewell, Leicester Square. It's a long, long way to Tipperary, but my heart's right there.
I wanted to apply for the Shall Not Grow project because I wanted to learn about the experience, all about the boys from the Grangefield Academy who gave up their lives during World War I.
We remember acts of bravery indeed.
My great-great-grandfather was a sergeant in the war named George Bernard Harrison. I'm intrigued to find out if there could be a connection between him, the soldiers and the school memorial.
For war paradoxically brings out the best in human nature, even against the backdrop of disaster. Whatever the causes of
Carrying out research, you need to start with what you know.
is rooted in mankind's darkest compulsions. The condemning of innocent citizens to the slavery of slaughter taints us all.
You're going to be working in quite small groups, probably 2s, 3s, with a sixth former or two. And I'm going to give you a few of the names to really research into in detail.
Basically, this was some of the boys from the Grangefield School.
A few things to cover off about researching, and then I'll leave you go. In carrying out research, you need to start with what you know. And there's a few things with these men that we know, but not many. So what things do we know about these men? Yep.
They were aged 11 to 16.
When they were at Stockton Secondary School,
Oh.
yes, they were, and we know they all went to Stockton Secondary School. So at some moment in time, they lived in Stockton. But they may not have lived in Stockton very long. They may not have been born in Stockton. Is there anybody that wants to research a specific person?
Oh, John, pack up your kids and come along with me. There's a party across the sea, and they need your company to grace it. Oh, John, kiss her goodbye, you know that she'll be true. It's near the time to fall in line with a million more like you, and we're all going calling on the Kaiser. For we've got to teach the Kaiser to be wiser, and we'll bring him something good, a cologne made of wood. We'll wish him well with shot and shell, the son of a gun we'll give him well, we're all going home.
We're fighting me every day fear of drowning, fear of torpedoes. And so they even had a little airship base in Redcar. You've got a group now called GCHQ that listen to everybody's transmissions. The 5th Durham Light Infantry came into the Battle of the Somme, and they came in as part of the 150th Brigade, so they came in with a lot more battalions, 7 other battalions, to relieve all the other men that had been fighting in the battle. So the other guys had been fighting, they'd been getting shelled, they were getting slowed down. The 150th came in, they were very well trained, and they started to take trenches from south to north. And as they took the trenches, they renamed them. So some of the trenches out on the Western Front are named after the officers, and named after the Durhams themselves. There is a Durham Trench on the Western Front.
Cyril Gooding was the person I was researching from 69. He was a sergeant in the Durham Light Infantry, and he died on the 18th of September 1916. There's records that on the 23rd of September 1915 he was listed as wounded.
So heavy gunfire continued all night, but by this morning it quietened down. I suppose that both sides recognise the white flag up here and stop at times to collect the wounded. Whether this is true or not, I don't know. 2 men from Athlone were accidentally wounded by a German rifle grenade. The wounds were severe and both were in the legs. They found a German grenade, and after poking at it, put it on the ground without tampering with it, and after going about 20 yards it burst. One of them had 4 wounds to the leg and 1 single wound. Both are good lads, and I'm sorry to lose them.
So he's from the regiment that gentleman came to talk to you about at the very beginning, wasn't he? Were you the one who said, I've changed my mind now, I've spoken to them?
Yeah, I was the one who changed my mind about that.
Yeah, because this man's story interested you. So after today, you've changed your mind, have you, on which person you want to research?
Yeah, I have. So then I realised I should do Gooding because of the information I found out. And Gooding's really appealed to me from what I've been learning about this afternoon.
This is an interesting little booklet. They seem to have set up an association for all boys of the school, and this is the first edition of it.
Basically, this was some of the boys from the Greenfield School who went and fought in the war, and it's got the names at the bottom here. And then all of these names, like G. Jones, R.J. Harris, are all on this sheet. G. Jones is... Find G. Jones. G. Jones is there. R.J. Harris is there. So that's got and it proves that they did go in the war and that they are the people from here because they are from the school.
When Great Britain was issued with a declaration of war on Germany in 1914, Roland James Harris was probably living in Stockton-on-Tees. He died on September the 17th, 1916, in Somme, France, when he was 20 years old.
William Walker Tyerman was born in 1893 in Stockton-on-Tees, Durham. Tyerman had 2 siblings. They were called Mary and Margaret Alice. Mary died at age 4. In 1911 he was an apprentice printer. In 1914 he was awarded the British War Medal and Victory Medal, but he got killed as a sergeant on the 10th of July 1916.
George Blakey was born in 1892 in Stockton-on-Tees, Durham. His father William was 39 and his mother Eliza was 35. He had 1 brother and 1 sister. He died on the 16th of September 1916 in the Somme, France, at the age of 24.
Walter Wilfred Green was born in July 1894 in Stockton-on-Tees. His father was John, who was 32. His mother was Rose, who was 31 when Wilfred was born. He had 1 sister. He died on October the 6th, 1916, at the age of 22. Wilfred Green's remains were never found. He is one of the missing who's commemorated on the Team Powell Memorial.
A poor aviator lay dying at the end of a bright summer's day. His comrades had gathered around him to carry his fragments away. The airplane was piled on his wishbone, his Hotchkiss was wrapped round his head, he wore a spark plug on each elbow, 'twas plain he would shortly be dead. He spit out a valve and a gasket, and stirred in the stump where he lay, and then to his wondering comrades these brave parting words he did say. Take the magneto out of my stomach, and the butterfly valve off my neck. Extract from my liver the crankshaft, there are lots of good parts in this wreck. Take the manifold out of my larynx, and the cylinders out of my brain. Take the piston rods out of my kidneys, and assemble the engine again.
Quite good, you know, the football team. They played. Oh, good. He's a cricketer and a footballer. Should we? I think I've got pictures of him. I'll just check.
Buried in here at Camwart, there's a Captain Wilfred Neville, who was part of the 8th Sussex Regiment. He found fame during the war by, he gave each of his platoon commanders a football and said he would award a prize for the first platoon to kick a football into the German trenches. So they advanced on the assault, kicking a football in front of them, trying to get a football into the German trenches. Captain Neville himself, on the assault, was killed with about 2 minutes of the assault started.
Private Puss is a funny little codger with a smile, a funny smile. 5 feet none, he's an awful little dodger with a smile, a sunny smile. Flushed or broke, he'll have his little joke. He can't be suppressed. All the other fellows have to grin when he gets it off his chest. Hey! Pack up your troubles in your old kit bag and smile, smile, smile. While you balloon them but to light your fag, smile boys, that's the style. What's the use of worrying? It never was worthwhile. Oh, pack up your troubles in your old kit bag and smile, smile, smile.
I hope feel stimulated to keep on with your research over the holidays. We've got vast numbers of trees on Ancestry by now, and I keep having a little look, and I can see that they're growing all the time in the depth of what you're finding and the range of it, which is absolutely fantastic. So I'll see you the other side of Easter. We've got a week before we actually go to London.
Yeah.
So here we are, going to London. How are you feeling about the trip?
Feeling good.
Have you been to London before?
I've been to
Have you? Okay. Well, you haven't, Hannah. And have you, Grace? You have. So, we've been doing the project quite a little while now. Yeah. What do you think you've got out of it so far?
quite a lot out.
What's that? Oh yeah, okay. Remind us what we found out about Thomas Wetherell.
We found out where he lived, and we found out that he was also in the football team.
My father, Gilbert D., is in the back row next to Tommy Wetherell. My father and Tommy joined up together in 1915. They were in the same company of the Royal Engineers. Tommy was killed in 1917 at Ypres, and my father was in his burial party. Tommy's mother was a widow, and he was her only child. As was common in those days, Mrs. Wetherill kept his bedroom as a shrine. Did he live near where you live? That was
33 Mellor Street.
And I think we'll find out a lot more about the First World War in general today at the museum. This lady is coming from France, near Paris, with a party of students who are in a choir, and they're going to be singing this evening in Farnborough.
Wow.
And then in November, singing as part of a commemoration with some German students also.
Yes.
So
English children too. And so
how have you found this visit?
very interesting, and I think it's absolutely perfect for teenagers because they realize what a war could be and how stupid it is. And as they are going to celebrate peace on the 11th of November, it was just the visit to be done.
Of a German army that had been Ludendorff ordered a new attack called the Peace Offensive to encourage his killing army to believe that it would end this, but the Allies were now gone.
Anti-aircraft? Yeah, I could see a few anti-aircraft from there.
Hold on. You do right exactly what you put them.
How are you getting on, love? You found some more interesting stuff?
Yep.
What have you found?
That on the first day of the Battle of the Somme, by evening, 20,000 of our men were dead.
But then she was on X Factor. Yeah. She was on X Factor. She actually got X Factor. I don't know.
How much food have you lot eaten today?
A lot.
It's mad. You had about 17 bags of Christmas sweets on the train. Then all this.
Yeah. On the 28th of June 1914, it said that 7 back terrorists shot dead at Frankfurt, something like that. The head to the Austrian-Hungary front. And then it says like Germany kind of like started the war, something like that. And that's how the war started.
Love, I hope you don't mind me interviewing you, but Joanna said to me that you've been really moved by these images. So, can you tell me a little bit about it?
It's just the clip is showed like how men were going off to war and they were happy and they were smiling, not knowing like what was going to happen to them, and like you relate to now, and you kind of like think that many boys now they would do stuff like what they did during them times, and it just amuses me to think that they were going through horrible things and they still were happy, and they never like gave up, or they never thought just for it, they just went for it to help and save like all of us now, if you think about it.
Right, troops, we're on our way. In making this journey, we're repeating exactly the same journey that the 69 Stockton Secondary School lads made during the First World War. So, as we go along today, I hope you'll find time to reflect on that fact. Some of them were not much older than Aliyah is today, and that you will be soon. So 17 years of age, some of them. You could sign up and enlist at age 16. And some young lads, so enthusiastic were they to give their lives for the country that they lied about their age and went before they were even 16 years old. Little did they know, of course, what fate would await them. But the poem I'm going to read now describes a conversation between a farmer and a young man that suggests that for some, that decision about enlisting or not was not quite so straightforward. And it's called as the team's head brass. The team's head brass, what that refers to is a team of horses ploughing, and the head brass is the apparatus, the bridle, if you like, that kept the two horses working the plough. So this is before the days of mechanical tractors and so on. As the team's head brass flashed out on the turn, the lovers disappeared into the wood. I sat among the boughs of the fallen elm that strewed an angle of the fallow and watched the plough narrowing a yellow square of charlock. Every time the horses turned, instead of treading me down, the ploughman leaned upon the handles to say or ask a word about the weather, next about the war. Scraping the share, he faced toward the wood and screwed along the furrow till the brass flashed once more. The blizzard felled the elm, whose crest I sat in, by a woodpecker's round hole. The ploughman said, "When will they take it away?" "When the war's over." So the talk began. 1 minute and an interval of 10, a minute more and the same interval. "Have you been out?" "No." "And don't want to, perhaps?" "If I could only come back again, I should. I could spare an arm. I shouldn't want to lose a leg. If I should lose my head, why, so I should want nothing more." "Have many gone from here?" "Yes." "Many lost?" "Yes, a good few. Only 2 teams work on the farm this year. One of my mates is dead. The second day in France they killed him. It was back in March, the very night of the blizzard too. Now if he had stayed here, we should have moved the tree. And I should not have sat here. Everything would have been different. For it would have been another world. Aye, and a better though, if we could see all might seem good. Then the lovers came out of the wood again. The horses started, and for the last time, I watched the clods crumble and topple over after the ploughshare and the stumbling team.
It is now merely a matter of moments between France and their 3rd World Cup final. And France have taken the gloss off Belgium's golden generation and booked their place in their third World Cup final.
Father dear, I've just finished mess and I'm here in the YMCA. How I've missed your tender caress since the day when I marched away. But don't worry, dear, I'm contented here. What is more, I'm feeling fine. Everything's all right, dear, and every night I will drop you a line.
So one group that we've thought about quite a lot in our research, some of us anyway, is about women in the war and what it meant to women in the war, because the First World War saw a great deal of change for women.
Bertram Bainbridge was born on August 19 in 1890 in Stockton. His father was called John and his mother was named Annie. He married someone called Nellie Pidgley Bentley in July 1911. They had one child during their marriage and he died as a young father on March the 21st, 1918 at the age of 27.
Before the war, most women didn't do paid work.
His sisters were named Annie Maud and his other sister was named Laurel.
Some women may have been servants, so they would leave their own home and work in the home of someone else. And really the First World War saw the end of domestic service.
His son was born on August 31st, 1912 in Darlington.
I found out that my great-great-grandfather died in World War III.
Really?
While doing my application for it.
And what was his name?
Can't remember. I've got it wrote down on my phone.
I don't think I'd know my great-grandparents' names.
Who are you concentrating on, Grace, from the men?
Ernest Jackson.
Remind me about him. I don't feel very well sighted on Ernest Jackson.
He had a child who was 6 when he died.
Wow. He must have been one of the older soldiers then, I think, of the group.
Yeah, and he was married to... what she's called now.
Do we know what he did for a living before he went in the army? I think we've gone a bit rusty over Easter, haven't we?
Ernest Jackson was born in December 1888 and died in September 1916. He was 27 and he died as a young father of 3 children.
What were the children called?
Violet, Ivy and Annie.
And how old were they, love?
When he died, Ivy was 4
Annie was 2, and the other one was 3.
So this is a guy who left his young family and his wife, came all the way over here and never saw him again.
His wife remarried.
Women had to get jobs, they had to do the work that men weren't there to do anymore. And having done that work at the end of the First World War, they were very reluctant to go back to the lifestyle that they'd had beforehand.
Didn't they need to kind of like ensure the children's future and things like that? And how does it feel for you, having researched him, being stood here?
It's weird.
Men always used to get a certain amount of time leave away from the battalion. But there was a lot of stigma of being back home and not serving, not being brave, not fighting. And sometimes people would give people who were not serving a white feather, which meant that they were cowards.
I have a personal interest because my great-great-uncle, William Leeming, fought in World War I, but sadly he was one of the 3,895 casualties and died aged 18 on the 29th of May 1918.
James William Wallace was born in 1894. His father Samuel was 36 and his mother Lilia was 31. He was part of the Durham Light Infantry 1st and 5th Battalion, and his battalion was mobilised in August 1914. Sadly, he died in 1917 at the age of 23.
This is the grave of Leslie Bowman Hind. Leslie was born in 1897 in Saltburn, and Leslie was only 19 when he died. He was in the Royal Fusiliers, and he left his war gratuity to his mother, which suggests his father had probably died before Leslie himself died.
Robert Joel Shipley was born on September 19, 1897 in Stockton-on-Tees. His father Edward was 28 and his mother Florence was 27. He died on April 9, 1917.
This is what we normally grave. He died on the first day of the Battle of the Somme, 1st of July 1916.
Two other of the 69 who are commemorated at the Arras Memorial are Arthur Chapman Cousins, born in 1896 to Emma and Marmaduke. And Arthur served in the 1st Division of the 9th Battalion of the Durham Light Infantry, and he achieved the rank of Lance Corporal. He'd left school by the age of 15. Arthur died on the 23rd of April 1917. Also, Cuthbert Joseph Paxton, who was born in April 1895 in Stockton-on-Tees to John and Mary. He had 2 brothers. He achieved the rank of second lieutenant, so he must have been a very distinguished soldier.
Benjamin Alexander Watson is one of the many soldiers I've been researching from 69. He was a second lieutenant for the Northumberland Fusiliers in the First World War. He died on the 24th of October 1918 and his body was never recovered.
Another of the soldiers commemorated at Poitiers Cemetery is William Sanderson Short. William was one of our married soldiers. He married Lottie Perks in 1917 in his hometown, so a wartime marriage. Lots of men hurried on and married their sweethearts in case they didn't come back, which in William's case was sadly true.
There's not a whole lot that we know about Arnold Jewett because a lot of his records were blown away during World War II when the offices were bombed.
Tom Maxwell was born in January 1891 in Middlesbrough, Yorkshire. His father, Thomas, was 41 and his mother, Emma, was 40. He had 2 brothers and 3 sisters. Before the war, he worked as a fitter. He died on March 1st, 1916 at the age of 25.
When Walter Wynne was born in January 1890 in Sedgefield, Durham, England, his father, Henry, was 29 and his mother, Mary, was 28. He married Jessie Patterson McMorrin on February 26, 1916. his hometown. He died on September 26, 1916, at the age of 26.
Thomas Vincent Burrell was born on the 14th of August 1897 in Stockton-on-Tees. His father, Francis, was a shipbuilder's clerk and his mother, Mary. He had 5 brothers and 4 sisters. He served with distinction in the King's Own Yorkshire Light Infantry, becoming a sergeant in D Company of the 9th Battalion. Thomas Vincent almost made it through to the end of the war, dying on the 9th of September 1918, in the very last months of the conflict. He was aged 21. His family lived in Eaglescliff in what is now the Parkmoor Hotel, but was then known as Parkmoor. He's buried in Vis-en-Artois, near Arras in northern France.
They were summoned from the hillside, they were called in from the glen, and the country found them ready at the stirring call for men. Let no tears add to their hardship as the soldiers pass along, and although your heart is breaking, make it sing this cheery song. Keep the home fires burning while your hearts are yearning. Though your lads are far away, they dream of home. There's a silver lining through the dark cloud shining. Turn the dark cloud inside out till the boys come home.
My name's Peter Copeland, and I'm here to talk about my great-uncle Arthur William Austell, who fought and sadly passed away in the First World War. Every family was affected, either directly or they would certainly know someone in the street. They would certainly know someone who would have been killed. Artie Austell. This is just my family, but it would be for all the families who are still around in Stockton and their relatives. The same story will be told. There'll be someone there who will have gone to war. Walk past this plaque in the old main hall hundreds, maybe thousands of times and not thought about it. And only in the later years did I realise that my great-uncle Artie would have been on that plaque.
This is nice, isn't it? For Stockton Secondary School, as it was then known, I believe.
That's beautiful, isn't it? Yeah. I mean, I've not even been this close to it. I've not touched it anyways. And Artie then joins the 1st Battalion Royal Fusiliers in the November of 1915. And in 1916, they suffered in the German gas attack at Woolagame, and then moved to the Somme. I had the privilege of seeing where he was buried.
Up to your waist in water, up to your eyes in sludge, using the kind of language that makes the sergeant blush. Oh, wouldn't join the army, that's what we all inquire. Don't we pity the poor civilian sitting around the fire? Oh, 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 it's a lovely war. It's a lovely war. Don't be a soldier, eh? Oh, it's a shame to take the pain. As soon as Reveille is gone, we feel just as heavy as lead, but we never get up to the sergeant brings a breakfast up to bed. Oh, 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 it's a lovely war. Oh, what do we want with eggs and ham when we got plum and apple jam? Home for the right turn, a we spend the money we earn. Oh, 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 it's a lovely war.
What was it about Lancelot Rains that was unusual?
He was quite rich and he came from a rich background and he was very religious as well and he worked in a church with it. So him joining up would have gone against the church.
Would he have given comfort to the soldiers?
Yeah.
They were, like, gone for a hard time.
He's always there at the front lines, ignoring shell fire, artillery fire coming in, walking up and down the trenches, telling his men to dig it. So it wasn't this position of, I'm in the position of power, I'm a commander, I can do what I like, I'll tell you to go die, I'm not going to lead you to your death. He was actually risking his own life.
Morning, troops. Good morning. Okay, so we are in the region, as they say, and we are exactly where our men would have been. So we're in the Somme Valley. The Somme is a river, a canal, and obviously the land surrounding it. The Germans were here before the British. The Germans had all the best places. They had the higher ground, which is easier to defend. They had the best trenches, as you'll find out today, and lived in relatively luxurious quarters in the trenches. This morning we're going to visit a number of cemeteries, all quite close to each other, which relate to the battles of the Somme. And over the 141 days of the Battle of the Somme, some of these villages changed hands in terms of which was the occupying force. One or more of our soldiers fell in the vicinity of these cemeteries and is either buried or commemorated there. The village of Cornwall lay just over a kilometre behind the front line on the 1st of July 1916 and was an important hub for units fighting nearby, with medical units and battalion headquarters stationed in the village. The roads were often filled with ammunition trucks supplying over 80 guns, which were crowded into a kilometre of flat valley floor. These guns and their crews were regularly targeted by German artillery, and the area quickly became known as Death Valley. This is now the final resting place of over 850 servicemen, of whom some 28 remain unidentified. On the 1st of July 1916, soldiers of the 18th Division were positioned in the British lines north of Cornwall. Among them were some of the first British volunteers of the war, recruited in September 1914, and this would be their first experience of a major battle.
Reuben Reeves was born in January 1889 in Stockton-on-Tees to his strangely old parents at the time at 47 and 41. He enlisted in the military on the 25th of December 1915 and passed away on the 1st of July 1916 at the age of 27.
The 7th, 17th and 21st Divisions of the 15th Corps began to consolidate on the 3rd of July, and many reports were sent back that the Germans were still disorganised, with Mametz Wood and Quadrangle Trench empty.
Mametz Wood was, for many Welsh soldiers, their first major battle in World War I. For hundreds of them, the bloody fight would be their last. The wood in northern France, nearly a mile wide and more than a mile deep, was of key importance in the Battle of the Somme, where Allied forces would fight the Germans for 5 months on a 15-mile front.
They did it for you. They did it so you could come on this trip and have the life you've got today.
Mamet's Wood here is the scene where the Welsh division fought. A member of that Welsh division was Siegfried Sassoon, who was in the Welsh Fusiliers, and it was in the fighting here that he earned his military cross.
I really wrote this because while I was there, they uncovered a shallow grave of 20 Allied soldiers who had been buried very, very quickly, but whoever had buried them had taken the time to actually link their arms, arm in arm. And when I saw a photograph of this grave, I just knew it was one of those images that had burned itself onto my mind. Mamet's Wood. For years afterwards, the farmers found them, the wasted young, turning up under their plough blades as they tended the land back into itself. A chit of bone, the china plate of a shoulder blade, the relic of a finger, the blown and broken bird's egg of a skull, all mimicked now in flint, breaking blue in white, across this field where they were told to walk, not run, towards the wood and its nesting machine guns. And even now the earth stands sentinel, reaching back into itself for reminders of what happened, like a wound working a foreign body to the surface of the skin. This morning, 20 men buried in one long grave, a broken mosaic of bone linked arm in arm, their skeletons paused mid-dance macabre in boots that outlasted them, their socketed heads tilted back at an angle, and their jaws, those that have them, dropped open, as if the notes they had sung have only now, with this unearthing, slipped from their absent tongues.
They actually advance across this land over the top and are coming under fire from here, and they reach the front line and go into no man's land, and you'll see a dead petrified tree. That's the danger tree, and not one man gets beyond that tree.
With a proud thanksgiving, a mother for her child, England mourns for her dead across the sea. Flesh of her flesh they were, spirit of her spirit, fallen in the cause of free.
Solemn the drums thrill, death august and royal, sings sorrow up into immortal spheres. There is music in the midst of desolation, and the glory that shines upon our tears.
They went with songs to the battle, they were young, straight of limb, true of eye, steady and aglow. They were staunch to the end against odds uncounted. They fell with their faces to the floor.
They mingle not with their laughing comrades again. They sit no more at familiar tables of home. They have no lot in our labour of the daytime. They sleep beyond England's foam.
But where our desires are and our hopes profound, felt as a wellspring that is hidden from sight, To the innermost heart of their own land they are known, as the stars are known to the night.
As the stars that shall be bright when we are dust, moving in marches upon the heavenly plain.
As the stars that are starry in the night time of our darkness, to the end, to the end.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years contempt. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them.